everyone, it's Nina Marie. Thanks for joining me today for another video. I am going to be using some brand new products today from Simon Says Stamps Rain or Shine release, but this technique that I'm going to share is really fun. You can do the same kind of concept with other embossing folder and coordinating die combos that you might already have in your stash, so bear that in mind. The technique that I'm sharing today is doable with other designs. So you don't have to have this new Soaring Swallows embossing folder and die set, though it is beautiful and I had so much fun creating with it. It is a very elegant embossing folder, and as I alluded to, there are coordinating dies available for it. And having dies for your embossing folders is such a fun way to be able to maximize their use. So I'm going to walk you through how I created this card and then share some tips and tricks along the way too. So I have the Soaring Swallows embossing folder here, and I'm cutting out the piece of paper here for the coordinating dies. I prefer to die cut first and then emboss. Why is because I love the dimension that the embossing folder gives, and I don't want to smush it when I run the coordinating dies through my embossed paper. So I like to take my paper and cut it out first, and then nestle those little die cuts into the debossed portion of the embossing folder, so the area of the folder where the design is pressed into the plastic. I kind of nestle those into place. You could tape them down if you'd like to. Sometimes I do, sometimes I don't. I didn't on this card, but they're going to nestle into place almost like a puzzle. And then this will allow the dimension to be super detailed on these die cut pieces. So that gives me these beautiful swallows that look amazing, and I can now color them and put them onto a card. You could use the swallows without the actual embossed background. You could just use the swallows on their own. Or as I'm going to be doing today, I'm going to use the swallows then with the background that comes with that entire folder. So I'm coloring my swallows with a couple of blue inks. I have Sky and Night. These beautiful blue tones are going to look so pretty on these swallows. I'm using a very small detail blending brush from Waffle Flower to help me color in specific sections of the swallow that I want to have that darkest color. I used a larger brush to apply a more broad area of that lighter blue, but now I'm coming in with that darker blue and just adding certain areas of shading. Then I'm going to use a little bit of orange in that same detail blending brush to apply that to the neck area of the bird. Then for its belly, I'm going to bring in some fawn ink. This is a light gray, and I'll feather that towards the center of the bird. And that's going to give me some beautiful shading. If you want to add some detail, we can go a step further, and you can use your Copic markers or colored pencils to add some deeper shading more strategically in certain areas. So that's what I'm doing here. I'm taking a dark blue Copic marker, and I'm just using that to feather in some darker color on certain areas of the bird. And that's going to allow me to accent some of those feather details really nicely. And then I also used a light E marker to add a little bit of shading around the body of the bird where it meets up with that warm gray color. I also used a bit of orange to color in its beak. I did use a black pen to color in the eyes of the birds. That's going to allow me to make them more lifelike. Now I'm going to work on a background. Again, I'm die cutting, so I want to die cut first and then emboss. I want this arched shape for the panel of my card, so I ran that through my die cut machine, and now I can lay this inside of my embossing folder and run this through my machine again to emboss that design into that dome. So that's going to look beautiful as the backdrop for my swallows. I'm going to color this background with a bit of ink so that way I have some color back there, and I will lay my swallows on top of the areas of where they're embossed into the paper. So this is where I'm going to bring in just a couple of light shades of ink, and I'm going to color in that background. If you're using a different embossing folder than I am, and let's say maybe your design is florals, you color in your florals with some detail like I did for the birds, and then you use some soft colors to add just a little bit of shading to the background that the images came from. So then you're going to be able to lay your images over top of where they originally sat, and that's going to give you a soft backdrop behind them. So it allows those images to stand out. So this is a great technique for any type of embossing folder and die combo. After I ink blended 2 different colors of ink onto my background, I then used some Distress Spray Stain in Tarnished Brass to splatter onto that background for a little bit of a gold touch. I'm bringing in Simon Says Stamp's Nested Dome Arched Frames to die cut a frame from some gold cardstock that I can then nest on top of my background. You can see that I originally started to adhere my birds onto the background, but after doing so, I decided I wanted to add that frame, so I just peeled the birds off very carefully, put my frame down on top, and then I can reattach the birds in place. So I kind of changed my mind sometimes as I'm going along. That is totally okay, and it happens to all of us, so don't feel bad if you do it, because I do it all the time. So I'm going to reuse the adhesive that I already had on the backside of the birds. It was some foam squares. They don't stick anymore, but if I just put a little bit of glue on the backside, that refreshes them, and this will hold the birds in place. Now I'm going to attach this onto a card base. So I made a card base from some blush cardstock from Altenew, and I'm putting some foam tape on the backside of my domed panel. So this will allow me to pop this up off of that beautiful pink color. This pink color is gorgeous and really offsets the beautiful navy color of the birds. I'm bringing in this brand new Thank You Basic set from CZ Design. I love all of these different thank you greetings in a variety of different styles, fonts, and sizes. This is a great stamp set that you could find a greeting for almost any card you're creating. I'm going to stamp this thank you onto some burnt orange cardstock from Simon Says Stamp. I'm using embossing ink to stamp that down. I do want to continue that gold theme that I have going on throughout this card, so I'm going to use gold embossing powder to sprinkle over top, and then I'll take my heat tool to set this. So then I have this beautiful greeting that I can cut out, and then I'll just use some thin 3D foam squares to pop this up. I chose thin 3D foam squares because my birds are popped up with regular dimension foam tape, so this thin foam tape is a little bit thinner than those foam squares on the backside of the birds. So that's going to change the depth of this card. So the sentiment's a little bit more further back than the birds. Just add some interest and depth to the card. There are some brand new Cottontail embellishments from Simon Says Stamp that I thought are the perfect touch to add to the background of my card. They're dreamy. They're different than a clear. They have a slight shiny white finish to them, and I just loved that. It was beautiful and a perfect accent for this card. It feels like dewdrops in the background. Then with that beautiful metallic splattering in the background as well, that really accented this card nicely. Added a few more extra touches with the gold on the sentiment and the frame. All in all, this card is super elegant, and I was so excited with how it turned out. Those birds just literally are popping off of this card. So I hope that you were inspired by this idea. It allows you to highlight your die cut and embossed images by making sure that they're the focal point of the card. So you have those as the center point, and then the background that they came from, that is very subtle behind them, but it allows them to feel like they are part of a scene. So I hope you will try this technique out with embossing folders and dies that you may already have in your stash. Or if you're interested in finding the Soaring Swallows embossing folder and die set from Simon Says Stamp's new Rain or Shine collection, you can find links down in the video description and on my blog for you to check it out. Thank you so much for tuning in today for this video. I appreciate that you stopped by and spent some time with me. I'll look forward to seeing you again very soon with another video, but until next time, have a wonderful day, friends, and we'll see you again very soon.